what was your cringe phase like? Story 1. When I was in high school, the rise of prank videos and public trolling were the hit videos on YouTube, so I tried making my own. My first video was called The Crab Walk, where I just walked around a busy town square doing a stupid walk and face that looked like a crab. I thought it was funny, but years later I watched it and realized everyone thought I had a mental disability. I wish I still had it so I could show you, but I deleted it after nearly throwing up and shitting myself from cringing so hard. Edit here is an accurate illustration so you can have an idea of how stupid I looked. Story 2. As a 13-year-old girl, crying to my parents about how no boys were interested in me so I'd never have a boyfriend. Still don't get how my dad was able to keep a straight face while he was comforting me. He's awesome. Story 3. I was that dude who wore that one Cookie Monster hat and drank Monster. I was 9 at the time. Edit my highest rated comment is me being cringy. At least it's rewarding. Story 4. Remember that girl from middle school who wore all black, only listened to The Cure and Dashboard Confessional-esque emo, would only talk in sardonic half-answers or through obscure literary quotes, and generally had an obnoxious air of superiority that she thought wouldn't show through the illusion of depression that she put out. Yeah, we sucked. Edit former emo girls unite. Story 5. I thought I was a raver, wore tons of bracelets, neon shirts with baggy jeans, but I was too much of a wuss to go to a rave. I just went online in rave chat rooms. I even dyed my hair pink. I still get all red with embarrassment just thinking about it. Edit my most upvoted comment ever is, of course, about my blunder years. If anyone wants to cringe at the music I liked, I was really into cybertrance, a short-lived genre. Hey Race, another these guys, Mars and Mr. had a shop in the SF Bay Area, and Aaron Axelson had a radio show called Subsonic I used to stay up to listen to on Saturday nights at midnight. And my all-time favorite from that time, I also used to buy tons of glow sticks. Hello YouTube, and we ilkelcome to a new Minecraft Let's Play. Story 6. I was a weeboo for years. Between the ages of 12 to 16 I thought anime in Japan were the best things ever and obnoxiously pushed it on people, and thought I was so awesome. It was awful now that I look back. Story 7. Okay, the top 2 comments are so weak. I used to have this cheap trench raincoat that you buy all folded up in a bag from Walmart or wherever. I'd walk around in the hot sun with dollar store sunglasses and that thin plastic sheet of a coat and pretend I was a character from The Matrix. I was 13. Story 8. I never washed my face, had bad acne, and constantly preached about how little I cared what other people thought of me. Spoiler alert, I cared a lot. Also I was a weeb and was seriously convinced I was Japanese in another life. I was 13. Story 9. Found absurd holidays, Ferris Wheel Day, Brownie Day, and talked about them. And I also in class would just not even care even if I ripped a loud smelly one. Story 10. I thought white hair would be cool. Proceeded to bleach my hair into oblivion. A hairdresser sold me the industrial strength peroxide and then was like, just don't tell anyone where you got it. It got so bad it would break like dandelions in a strong wind. I was in my 20s, straight, and black. It was not a good look. Story 11. I had this scene phase where I'd throw money at Hot Topic and buy Pikachu shirts and wear it outside, wore stripped socks over my school uniform, joined anime club with a bunch of weeboos and started talking in Japanese. In Vietnamese. It was so cringy, oh god. Story 12. I was that kind of atheist, you know, the one who looks down on people for believing in God. I used to think I was one of the most smart alive because I didn't believe in the stupid Bible and those silly myths. Then college happened, I met a lot of really smart, caring, and awesome Christians. I even fell in love with a Catholic girl, something my teenage self swore to never do. I realized I was being a for criticizing other over what they believe in, what they connect with, what makes them feel like they have a purpose in life. So, I chilled it down. I'm still an atheist, but I respect other people's beliefs the same way that I like my views respected. Story 13. The cringe phase is basically a sliding window. When you're 18, it was 6 months ago. When you're 20, it was a year ago. When you're 25, it was 3 years ago. When you're 30, it was 5 years ago. Story 14. Getting melodramatic about everything related to a girl, thinking my first serious girlfriend a terrible person. In hindsight was the only one I could ever be with and my only chance for happiness. Even though 99 of the time we were together I was miserable. Spending way too much of my time preoccupied with her and missing out on other great things in life, because I would rather sit around and do nothing with her. Story 15. My cringe phase had phases. That's how bad it was. We start with the metal phase in 08, with a musical diet that consisted only of the likes of Disturbed, Godsmack, and Rise Against. I dyed my hair dark blue and wore only band t-shirts. I feel bad for my parents driving me when I insisted we listen to metal and I sang to it. Then comes the nice guy phase. I didn't understand why I wasn't drowning in a cubic mile of because I was such a gentleman. It was probably just that drove them away. The fedora likely helped too. Moving on, we arrive at the OMG so random XD phase, where Cheeseburger was the funniest website, Smosh was the greatest YouTube channel to ever exist, and Back and Rainbow Scat Mamisa combination were the pinnacles of comedy. The fedora made a return here. I also only ate health food and shamed anyone who ate junk food because I needed something to get above, I guess. More on that in a sec. The everything mainstream sucks phase. I couldn't enjoy things just because a lot of people liked them. While I admit I still get a good feeling out of finding something that's not very well known, I don't go around telling everyone that the music I listen to and the games I play are superior to theirs. And there you have the "you that guy Malone" cringe cycle. Story 16. Obesity and acne instantly made me the go-to kid to be made fun of. It made me so depressed I never did my hair, barely cleaned, and never brushed my teeth. I didn't want to do anything at all, so I became more and more disgusting until my body couldn't take it and I became incredibly ill over and over again. So I started cleaning myself more, I started dressing better, I started eating better. 60 pounds later and a fairly nice wardrobe, I've become the silent kid at a college campus who spends most of his time alone gladly, but I'm going for a teaching degree because I love being in front of a crowd of people. Story 17. Being thrown into a public school as a whiny foreign white girl who had friends that thought they were bloods. We didn't have any red bandanas so wore those generic red tea towels. Not even kidding, I hate myself, edit spelling. Story 18. Oh man, as a girl, I hit puberty and a big Nirvana stage around 11. I went to a middle school with about 400 kids and was pretty easily the tallest of any of them. I just grew like a weed overnight. I was just this gangly, grungy, headbanging mess. Story 19. Mullet and glam metal. Posters of glam metal douchebags on my bedroom walls. Long hair parted in the middle, huge Coke bottle glasses, flannel shirts every day with ripped jeans. I was totally grunge. Story 20. Hey race me, before braces and with the worst glasses for my face. I wore that hat for 2 years straight, doing a Luffy thing. The caption for this pic on Facebook is, "Cool kids still have cassette players." Story 21. I went through an all-out Naruto phase. I spoke broken Japanese. I brought my manga collection to school. I wore the headband in public, etc. I like to pretend like I ceased to exist from 12 to 16. Story 22. I was an emo kid that wore eyeliner, straightened his hair, and wrote shitty poetry and posted it on his Zanga page. This used to be my profile picture there, and this is just another angsty picture of me with my lip pierced and a fedora. Story 23. Went through a phase in 8th-9th grade where I would deliberately mismatch clothes because I thought it was artistic and edgy. I really just looked like a dork wearing a flannel long-sleeve shirt, a no-fear shirt, with a pair of velvet burgundy jeans. I went through a semi-emo skater phase a few years later where everyone thought I was goth, but it wasn't even remotely close to the cringe of my 8th-9th grade years. Story 24. Hanging out with antisocial people, so I take traits from them, like always being on my phone and not going to any parties, never getting a haircut, but at the same time not styling my hair. It was basically a bold cut cross emo fringe. Being a music elitist, I started listening to hip-hop, but not really. The way I saw it was Eminem was the #1 rapper and the only good one. I'd only listen to him and no one else. I thought I was so when I showed another kid Lose Yourself. Story 25. Sorry everyone, I win, overweight, baby face, angsty, believed in metal were true music and everyone else is an idiot. Self-proclaimed nice guy and that girls only like douchebags. No interesting qualities and obnoxious as 14 to 18 was a tough time for me. Story 26. I thought I could make a cool YouTube channel playing mobile games. I didn't really had a good computer to run PC games, but I found a jailbroken app that can screen record games. It was very laggy since I didn't have a good phone, so the games always kept crashing mid-recording. I still uploaded those videos. Also, the screen recorder let you record your voice, so I had really bad commentary. My voice was sometimes muffled. Since I didn't realize that I put my finger over the mic, I looked back on those videos. Oh man, I cringed so hard that I deleted them. Story 27. In middle school, I only wore polo shirts, had really ugly glasses, my hair was a mess and had braces. I then transitioned into the XD phase, wore those t-shirts that had puns on them, X get off my grill with a grill and food on it, and thought I was so emo because I loved MCR. I was a hot mess. Story 28. Mine was most of my 20s. I'm in my mid-30s now. I wanted to talk politics with everyone, regardless of if you were sitting next to me on an airplane or one of my in-laws at the dinner table. I would ask questions and pretend to be interested in what the other person would say, but really I'd just be waiting to rattle off my own aggressively liberal progressive opinions, so I could feel good if they agreed or argue if they disagreed. I just cringed into the earth's mantle while writing that. I'm still to the left of most Americans, but I hate it when I see people in their 20s acting like that, because it reminds me of a version of me that I'm not proud of, and I wish I could spare them the cringe. Story 29. Where do I start? There was the edgy phase. Think stupid hair, fringe over eyes, first a terrible ginger bob, then dyed black the black jeans with an unnecessary amount of belts and zips, the black nail polish, purple lipstick and fingerless gloves. I looked edgy as heck, and regret every moment of it. Next came the I'm actually an awkward nerd, why bother hiding it under layers of emo phase, wore a fedora unironically, lived off of Mountain Dew and Doritos, got in arguments on the internet with strangers over whether Star Wars or Star Trek is better. I've since ditched the fedora and nice guy attitude but pretty sure I'm still stuck in that. Story 30. I am a free-thinking atheist and all religious people are just sheep, and I must fight the good fight by bringing it up to literally everyone I come across. I'm still not religious, but I look back on my 14-year-old self and cringe. Story 31. That misunderstood genius phase that teenagers go through when they try to act super edgy and secretly think they're better than everyone else, but it's okay because I'm not like that, I'm better than those kids. Story 32. I was 12 when Linkin Park released Hybrid Theory, and I fell in love with the album and band, wore a bunch of clothes similar to them, really lame worker shirts, cargo pants shorts, short spiked hair. Granted I was 12 but still. Story 33. Wore stupid kids show shirts, dressed like a nerd, wore clothes that were too tight or too big, had that domo phase that a lot of Asian kids go through, and was the guy that would go home to play League. Luckily high school changed me. Story 34 Giant Weeaboo. I was growing out of it when Naruto got popular, or I would have been the kid who wore the headband to school. It's not a cartoon, Mom, it's anime. Story 35 I think I'm in a cringe phase now. I am 41 and have found myself telling kids anyone under 39 that they have grown so much, or look so much like their parent, or should be ashamed that they do not know Led Zeppelin. I saw the Struts at Carolina Rebellion, and my first thought was that their parents must be so proud. At the same show, I also told a white supremacist that he should be ashamed of himself for littering. I sincerely hope that in a few decades, I will give less and be awarded entry into the maximum cringe phase elderly. I would get on that social media app path, and DM all the girls I saw on there, asking them why their path account said they went to bed at 8:30, because that's way too early for a grown kid like yourself to be going to bed and like that. Story 36 I went my whole 7th grade hanging out with the bad kids. I listened to trash rap like Lil Wayne. My friend would sneak vodka into gym class and would all take sips even though I only pretended to because I was A and was too afraid to get caught. When my friend got caught having in the bathroom, I realized that they weren't really my crowd anymore. Story 37 Middle school. Super quiet, awkward, boy crazy even though all the boys thought I was crazy, lanky as, and oh yes, blue eyeshadow was literally my favorite. Story 38 In middle school I was really into wearing the color blue. I even wore blue eyeliner with blue mascara with all blue clothes. Not sure why. One day I wore a red shirt and got so many compliments that I decided to branch out in the color spectrum. Edit just realized I'm wearing all blue right now, blue shorts and blue shirt. Story 39 I was a huge nerd when I was around 12. And by nerd, I mean I was obsessed with Star Wars and had books on all of the expanded universe. I would go into these big explanations about things that happened in the expanded universe, and defended all of the movies as being the best pieces of cinema that ever existed. Since then, I just like watching the movies and talking about the films. I look at the prequels now and think, man, these kinda. Story 40 right now, I wrote a children's book based on Undertale, and will be reading it to 15 first-grade children tomorrow. What the am I doing with my life? For clarification, I'm in high school. I'm not just some creep who goes around to elementary schools and reads shitty books to kids. Story 41 The time I wore a penis onesie to a Halloween party, as a girl, so that I didn't abide by the stereotype that girls dress like sluts on Halloween. Ironically, I got hit on by more guys whilst wearing the onesie, because people assumed I was more active. Story 42 I loved Italia. I was in middle school, I watched an episode, watched the whole series, read and wrote fanfiction, made every single story I wrote only have my OCs as main characters, passed the weeboo bug to my friend. She married 20 countries in succession and forced me and my other friend to organize it. Cheered for Sweden in the Olympics even though we're not Swedish, then marched around the playground while waving a homemade Sweden flag while singing the theme song, which is really freaking annoying after hearing it 2 times. Also my anime phase as a whole was in France during Bastille Day. Planes were flying by the window of our condo and I just wanted to watch anime, talked about it non-stop, made paper bracelets of characters, made cringy OCs and lived out their highly lives in my head. I'm over it now, so when my friend who is now a casual anime fan sends me links, I'm never interested. Story 43 At first I had a random phase, which consisted of Invader Zim, LOL cats and meme faces, and texting people the full alphabet from time to time. Then I had a fedora tipping, MLP loving, nice guy someone please shoot me phase. Going through puberty was not kind to me. Story 44 I was a metalhead goth in high school. I also went to a Catholic high school and was very into Catholicism. This led to me wearing all black versions of my school uniform or wearing khaki trip pants as a part of my uniform. Being Catholic and into morbid things meant I read stuff like Dante's Inferno and John Milton's Paradise Lost. I am also black, and I was so self-hating in high school. I also wasn't like other girls. My grandmother tried to get me to dress more feminine, and I told her I didn't want to dress like the other girls because they dressed like whores. Then I wanted to be a nun at one point, and my grandmother was also against that because she didn't think not having was natural. Basically, I was really confused and self-hating as a teen, and I have no idea what I was thinking. Story 45 I am an atheist now and everyone else should be two-phase. I basically intentionally sparked religious debate so I could talk down to the fundies and act like I was superior for realizing all religion was stupid. I just don't bring it up anymore because I would rather just have a casual conversation, and if religion happens to come up, my attitude is more like as long as people aren't dicks to each other, I don't care. Edit no, I never wore a fedora or anything and my neckbeard was usually a result of me just being lazy in the shaving department. And it kind of sucks because fedoras used to be cool, and even though I look decent wearing one, I look way too mlad neckbeardy. Story 46 Where to start, pretty much every phase after 6th grade, Mac vs PC keyboard warrior, band nerd, mixed race at inner city middle school, mixed race at mostly white upper class high school, church kid addicted to, chubby 16 years old proto neckbeard ignored by girls, socially healthy neckbeard in college, stoner, things are much better these days. Story 47 Edgy as all, I wore a full-length trench coat to school every day for a year. How I didn't get mistaken for someone about to shoot up the school, you'll never know. Story 48 Junior senior year of high school, circa 2002 to 2003, Dickies, checkered everything, pins, dark burgundy hair, huge ball chain necklace, glasses with non-prescription lenses, Happy Bunny t-shirts. I was a walking hot topic. Story 49. I went through a not like other girls phase. Basically a female neckbeard type of girl. I was a Pegasister, a female brony, and even made an account on some brony dating site. If you go back far enough on my posting history you can find me arguing with someone defending said dating site. I also wondered why guys didn't like me in high school. I was weird, that's why. You're all welcome to look for my Blunder Years posts to see how weird. I mean, I'm still weird, but I like myself a lot more now. Story 50. Oh man, when I was 12 or so I discovered hair gel. I had a super short haircut at the time, so the gel basically plastered it to my forehead. Also I had braces and those big 90s wire frame glasses at the time. Story 51. In 6-7th grade I was still in my Chinibu phase. Weebos will know what's up and thought I was a spy. I wore dog tags printed from a Walmart tag maker that had my spy name on them, as well as paper clips and twine in my pocket to break into places. I carried a backgammon board as a suitcase and wore my dad's blazer as a trench coat. To cap it all, I would crawl around on all fours pretending I was breaking into my own house. And I used a pocket calculator as a cell phone. Flip phones were relatively new. I didn't make any friends until 8th grade. Story 52. TLDR, how I stopped being a parody of a romantic comedy protagonist, and also later a creepy pervert. This should probably go on a throwaway account, but hey, I actually had 2 cringe phases. The first was when I was in my country's equivalent of junior high. I was 15, I think. I fell in love with a girl in my class. Wasn't my first crush, but it was a really intense feeling. Nothing wrong with that per se, but having been conditioned by pop culture to think that true love always wins in the end, and having taken it at extreme face value, I got just about as creepy as one gets. First of all, I was convinced that because my love for her was real and genuine and oh so deep, it was only a matter of time and showing my dedication before she reciprocated. I missed the part where the other person has no obligation to be, interested. I started with silly but relatively harmless gestures like buying her a rose every week and leaving the rose on her desk. She knew it was for me, but Shed said pretty explicitly she wasn't into me. Then things escalated. Slowly but surely, I would look creepily stare at her during class and sigh and do other such. I would make over-the-top comments regarding how awesome she was. I'd spend pretty much all the time either brooding in a very obvious way to an onlooker, partly because I was genuinely too depressed to care what people would think, partly because I creepily thought it showed my love, or being very optimistic and excited, because Shed returned my feelings eventually, duh. I was also into her boyfriend when she got one, and would act like a mixture of aggressive, pathetic and macho in his presence, including semi-threats of violence. In the course of about a year, I managed to get the girl I was crushing on from actually being a good enough friend and liking me fine, to her being mildly amused and apparently somewhat flattered by the attention, to being annoyed, to creeped out, to, I assume, hating my guts. This lasted for about a year. After junior high ended, I got over her in a while, but for a few months I'd still go to my former school to catch the sight of her leaving after classes. Today I think of it as Jesus Christ, that's restraining order material. Then I thought I couldn't bear not to see her at least once in a while. Then I slowly got over her, and stepped away from me being a creepy. I realized what should be obvious even to a teenager if they're intelligent enough, that having strong emotions for someone is not reason enough for them to like you in a romantic way, and certainly when you do not do anything that actually endear you to them. To this day, I am wary of people who think loving someone is objectively good. My affection for the girl was genuine and it was deep for a teenager, but that has nothing to do with the situation and how creepy it was. I still blame romantic comedies for my temporary insanity. Now for the second cringe phase. It was not as bad, but by then I was older and should have really known better. I was around the time I was 17 to 19, I guess I was a furry. I thought it was a very big deal, and I spent a lot of time online in furry-related chats. The people I found there were cool enough. I actually made some friends that I kept contact with even years later, but I was an insufferable whiny little. I was under the delusion, like sadly many furries seem to be, that everyone should be super nice to everyone else, and any harsh comment, hostility or even indifference was so mean and evil and bad. As a result, I tended to think of myself as a really nice person, of course, and was just about as spineless and whiny as could be. Funnily enough, that made me actually more judgmental of others. This was compounded by being somewhat of an extreme of a stereotypical furry. I strongly identified with my persona. I had a bit of a victim complex. I had very poor judgment regarding what constitutes openness and honesty, and what is TMI Winnie Ruda being in. If you can think of something a stereotypical furry does online, I likely did it to some extent. I'm still a furry, my nick should be a dead giveaway, but I like to think I got over myself. The whole furry business is certainly no longer in Zom. That's such a big part of my identity thing. I still think furries can be a very accepting, lovely, smart and friendly bunch, but I have much less tolerance for Marie Pui codependent bullshit that some furries tend to spread. To this day, I tend to think furries get an excessively bad reputation, but I acknowledge the really bad ones do little to change that. I do sometimes miss how friendly and open I genuinely was. I did become a bit too jaded and cynical in some respects, and I do look back on my whiny phase to get some perspective and to rein my tendencies in, so I guess my cringy years weren't all a waste. I wore a cowboy hat for 6 months. I was 9 and from England. Story 53. Obsessed with shitty scene bands. Dyed my hair pitch black and had the emoest of emo bangs. Kill me, I know a lot of people had this phase, but it's just so embarrassing to look back on. I wore plaid pants a lot. Story 54. I was very clingy to girls in my school. I should have been a bit cooler, collected and put some distance to the girls, but no, my teenage self really wanted some action. Story 55. I was a mixture of the one of smart people but ends up looking stupid, up towards all of the teachers, overweight, and pimples all over my face, with a total lack of social skills. I'll post a picture when I get back home. I grew out my hair over my eyes. It was like emo but worse because I couldn't see anything. I also listened to a lot of 9 Inch Nails, Edit, and I still listen to them. Story 56. Everybody here sounds like they regret their past, but you had to go through that phase to get to where you are now. In the most literal sense, you would not exist if your past self hadn't gone through that phase. Don't be ashamed of it, embrace it, wear it like armor, for then it can never be used to hurt you. Story 57. It's not a phasey. I was super romantic and trying my best to get a girlfriend. Turns out I like and everyone knew it but me, which is why I couldn't get a girlfriend. No one told me I was gay. Story 58. I was a preteen furry. In my defense, I didn't have the fetish. My niche in the fandom was entirely populated by fellow 11-year-olds with imaginations. We just like to imagine ourselves as animals. And it was never. Story 59. A little bit different for me than what I am reading in this thread, but the thing I cringe most for about my past is when I was a bully in 3rd grade. I had just moved from a trailer in the backwoods of Virginia to the ghetto suburbs of Baltimore, and I had terrible hygiene and consequently no one liked me. It was a bad time in my life and I was always the biggest kid in class, so I took out my frustrations on anyone who was easy to victimize. In particular, there was a Chinese kid that I would be horribly racist to doing that thing with my eyes and mocking his accent, even getting him to cry sometimes. But because we were kids living in a poor area, no one ever did anything to stop me. More so than any embarrassing fashion choices or weird teenage personality things, I cringed the most for how shitty a person I was at 8 years old. The thing that really bugs me is that I can still remember the names of every kid that picked on me, but can't remember the name of the Chinese kid that I was such a bully to, and I worry that I did lasting damage to him and that he won't ever forget me the same way I didn't forget the people that picked on me. Story 60. In late middle school, I wore an Emerald Live TV shirt that was at least 2 sizes too big, and I had the creepiest unshaven face, nasty little mustache. I wore ugly glasses that hit my fave in the wrong spot, rubbing my skin raw. I probably smelled too, but I can't remember that specifically. It just seems like I probably smelled, looking back on it. Story 61. I thought that I was super different and cool by liking metal music. Even though I dressed like and tried to be like all of the cool kids, I basically thought I was hot even though I looked awful and I was the fakest person ever. Story 62. I wrote fanfiction and thought I was better than other girls. I was also really big about Twilight. I'm still writing my own stuff now, realize makeup is cool to me and realize that Twilight is. Story 63. Hoi Undertale Unite. Have a BAD tem in this world ITS fun post or be fun posted DETERMINATION. Where are the knives? NNNGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGGG Yeah, I shitposted chat post. A bunch of Undertale stuff everywhere, about when Undertale got released. Reset. Story 64. I was a creep on the internet. A very particular kind of creep, the Indian internet creep. I randomly pestered girls on Orkut, a popular social network in India at the time. I tried cybersexing with everybody I met on chat rooms, and I tried to woo foreign girls with my limited English. I did this every day in my free time, every day. Meeting girls like this was the only opportunity one had with talking to girls. I have been cursed at and blocked more times than I can count. Over time, I became better at English in no small way because of my creepy acts and became more connected with a few foreigners, and learned more about internet creeps and how it's not a nice thing to do. I have since stopped. I am terribly ashamed about this period of my life. Story 65. I had a goth phase that started when I was 13 and tried really hard to be edgy, but I really wasn't any good at it. Wore fishnet arm warmers to school, pinned badges and safety pins on my school tie, wrote song lyrics in purple gel pen all over my school bag. I used to feel really hard done by because my mum wouldn't let me dye my hair black or get my lip pierced, and even said in an argument once, "You're stopping me from expressing who I really am," before running upstairs to slam my bedroom door and blast Bring Me to Life on my CD player at full volume. Oh. And I wrote terrible fan fiction about Shadow the Hedgehog. Story 66. Tennis shoes, baggy jeans, too short t-shirts, refusal to use a comb, horrible bedhead. I didn't give about fashion, and I cringe whenever I see pictures from that phase. Story 67. I collected Nerf guns and made Nerf war action movies on YouTube, and labeled myself as such a gamer, and in my spare time only played COD and Halo. I also was addicted to Monster Energy even though I was like 10 at it. I also played Roblox, and had a random XD sense of humor. I made rage comics too. Story 68. In the 9th grade I went through a long period of neglecting things like bathing and general hygiene. My parent, I guess, just decided I was old enough to tend to things like that myself. Wake-up call came when a teacher gave me a large baggie full of hotel shampoos and soaps and a significant glance. Story 69. 8th grade I was obsessed with LOTR, specifically Legolas. I printed dozens of pictures of him and kept them in a folder, and I'd bring it out in the cafeteria before class and show my friends. I also wrote LOTR fanfiction and printed that out too. I bounced between obsessing over a boy and obsessing over LOTR, to the point where my friends didn't want to hear about either. I did end up dating that boy for a few weeks, which blows my mind. Story 70 ultra-liberal college kid, the kind that made sure everyone knew about it, you know what I'm talking about, was in that phase that most of you are in now. Good luck, it gets pretty rough when you come to that realization. Story 71 I was too poor to afford those skinny black ties that the emo kids also wore, so instead I just wore my dad's old work ties, with Looney Tunes on them. One was even a piano key tie that made noise. This was also before I figured out what calories were, how to do makeup properly. So to everyone else I was the super tall fat chick who only wore Hot Topic hand-me-downs with her dad's old work ties, and only listened to American Idiot with her equally awkward and ridiculous-looking friends. Story 72 in high school I was influenced by Reddit and became one of those contrarian edgelords who wanted to offend anyone. Good thing I snapped out of it relatively quickly. Story 73 crust, ripped clothes, trucker hat with the bill flipped up to cover up my awesome green mohawk that I let grease up into dog's hit smelling dreads. I had a beard to cover up for my lack of chin that made me look Amish. I wore aviators everywhere, would rub dirt on my clothes to look poor while my family pulled down $250K a year and lived in a gated community. Story 74 I'm not sure if this was a real phase or just one I wished I went through at THR time, but I got real inspired by John Cusack's character in Chicago Cab, weird guy in trenchcoat who creeps out taxi driver, travels to middle of dark alley, shakes his hand and runs away. I really wanted to be that guy. Spend nights roaming the streets looking kind of creepy and doing illogical things to weird people out. Luckily it stayed as a dream, and instead I watched a lot of movies at home alone instead. Story 75 boy am I glad to be late to this thread as this will be buried. I wrote a lot of fanfiction for Sonic. I was a huge fan. I met some people online. We had a forum where we role-played in various Sonic OCS. A few of us are still friends, and I'm actually marrying one of them this year, so it wasn't all bad. We just tend not to bring that part up. Story 76 when I was 14, I used to talk and act like the Death Note character Nier. I would say smart things and refuse to sit in chairs as Nier always sat on the floor in a weird way. I smartened up when people stopped talking to me and my teachers were yelling at me for sitting on the floor. I still have a 500-piece blank white puzzle.